So we'll be discussing about it in today class. The introduction. Cystic fibrosis, it is an autosomal recessive disorder, affects the epithelial cells of the respiratory, GI and reproductive tracts and leads to abnormal exocrine gland secretions. An individual must inherit a defective copy of the CF gene, one from each parent, to have cystic fibrosis. Although it can affect many organ systems, cystic fibrosis is particularly damaging to the lungs, leading to COPD in childhood and even in early adulthood. So as we know that it is a genetic disorder, each person inherits 2 of the cystic fibrotic genes, one from each parent. Children who inherit a faulty gene from each parent will have cystic fibrosis. It will not be inherited if only one parent is giving the defective gene. Children with gene and one normal gene will be a carrier only. Cystic fibrosis carriers usually have no symptoms of cystic fibrosis, but they can pass the faulty gene on to their children. So here we will be explaining how unaffected parents will also be giving the disease to the children. So out of 4, only 1 child will be having the disease, while the others, they will not be affected but can be carriers. So in cystic fibrosis, there is an alteration in the viscosity and tenacity of mucus produced at epithelial surfaces. The classical form of this syndrome includes increased bronchopulmonary secretions and infection and pancreatic insufficiency also, with a high sweat sodium and chloride concentration. So the epidemiology, it states that cystic fibrosis is found in 1 in 2000 to 3000 of live births. Approximately 30,000 children and adults with this disease in US have been found in the survey in 2002. Similarly, it was considered to be a fatal childhood disease, with 38% of people living with the disease in the above 18-year bracket. Now the etiopathogenesis of this disease. So now, as you know, that it is an autosomal recessive disease. It is due to mutation in the gene on chromosome 7 that it is transmitted. The CF gene, or the cystic fibrotic gene, which encodes a protein known as CFTR. It stands for cystic fibrosis transmembrane regulator. So there is an abnormal CFTR protein, and then the patients will be having a disruption of the chloride channels on the cells. I will show you in the diagram also. So you can see here that we have this normal gene and then we have this mutant gene. In the normal gene, the channel is transmitting the chloride ion through the cell, but here this chloride channel ions are not being transmitted. So this leads to deposition of a mucus layer, which is thickened mucus layer, and this leads to the symptoms we encounter in cystic fibrosis. Again the same thing. So the defective chloride transport, it causes more sodium and water reabsorption than normal. Secretion is affected, organs becomes thick and viscous, it obstructs the glands and ducts, dilatation of the secretory gland occurs, and it damages the exocrine tissue. The hallmark or the pathophysiological effect of cystic fibrosis, it includes, so this is the catch line. You need to memorize that excessive mucus production in the respiratory tract with impaired ability to clear the secretions, it leads to progressive COPD. So the other symptoms that occur due to these changes that have occurred are atelectasis, infection, bronchiectasis, dilatation of distal airways, and even damage to the lung and scarring of the fibrosis of lung tissue, which occurs later on. In the earlier stage, we are only getting atelectasis and bronchiectasis. Later on, chronic hypoxemia also sets in. Pancreatic enzyme deficiency and impaired digestion also occur in this disease. So as we know, all the glands are affected. Even the pancreatic gland is affected in the same way, and pancreatic insufficiency and impaired enzyme secretion occurs, due to which the impaired digestion and absorption of protein, carbohydrate and fats, it occurs. Later on, it leads to degenerative and fibrotic change and diabetes mellitus, which, as you all know, is a dangerous disease for everybody. Next, we have abnormal elevation of sodium and chloride concentration. Because of this, we often find that the child is salty. The mother might complain that when we kiss the child appears to be very salty. So due to the defect in chloride channels, it occurs, the sweat is very salty. Now clinically, how this disease presents clinically. Pulmonary manifestations like productive cough, wheezing, hyperinflation of the lung fields on the chest X-ray, then frequent infections, coughing, shortness of breath, and PFTs will be deranged in the later on obstructive airway disease. So here is a diagram. Again you can see in the X-ray how the lung changes have occurred. It has led to a lot of opacities that is occurring in the lungs. Now these were the pulmonary complications. Now the non-pulmonary complications, you can see GI problems can occur like pancreatic insufficiency, recurrent abdominal pain, biliary cirrhosis, vitamin deficiency, recurrent pancreatitis, and even weight loss. Amongst the genitourinary problems, we can have male and female infertility. Meconium ileus in a newborn can be a presenting thing which can lead us to suspect this disease. Clubbing of the extremities, salty tasting skin, poor growth, and poor weight gain. Now again, here is a diagram to show you how and what other parts are affected. Sinus problem, nose problems, salty sweat, frequent lung infections, enlarged heart, gallstones, all these things occur in the disease. Cystic fibrosis will lead to all these things. Okay, so we see that all these diseases will occur in cystic fibrosis. Assessment and diagnostic findings. Amongst the tests, we have the sweat chloride concentration test. So this test can be done to see if the sweat is more salty. Here the sweat chloride values of greater than 60 milliequivalents per liter will occur. Next we have genetic tests, because as you all know this is a genetic disease, so naturally we can go in for the CFTR defect which can be seen in these patients. Later on, chest X-ray which can lead to inflated lung, lung fibrosis and scarring as was shown in the diagram. Later on, a sinus X-ray which may also show sinusitis, LFTs, and a sputum culture is done. Now the medical management. Among the medical management of cystic fibrosis, we all know that being a genetic disease, it has no cure. So the best thing we can do is to prevent and control the lung infections or the sequelae that we might be getting because of this. So we can loosen the mucus and remove it from the lungs by keeping the patient well hydrated. Then preventing and treating blockage in the intestine, providing enough nutrition, and most important is to prevent dehydration, as dehydration leads to further thickening of the mucus. The treatments. In the treatment we have, as you all know, because infections are more prevalent in these type of patients, inflammations are also there, so we give an antibiotic medication, dilators might be needed, then mucus clearance strategies should be done, supplemental oxygen, lung transplantation will be required in very later on cases where we have a lot of scarring or fibrosis of lung has already occurred. Then we have gene therapy, lifestyle changes, and later on pulmonary rehab. Among the nursing management, as we all know, it comes out to be a lifestyle disease which will be progressing gradually throughout the life. So we have many other things also. The patient should be, the history of the patient should be taken very carefully, and we need to have the examination done. Now later on, ineffective airway clearance which may lead to excess mucus production, this should also be taken care of, and risk of chest infections because of retention of secretions should be seen. So we need to clear off the airways by physiotherapy and all other methods. Anticipatory grieving, because you need to do a lot of counseling of these patients and their attendants also. We need to assess the patient to cough, take deep breath, and use assistive devices to clear out their mucus. Then provide endotracheal suctioning, aseptic techniques should be followed. Then we need to have a team of work, that is a physician, respiratory therapist, all these people will assist the child to have pulmonary hygiene measures, and postural drainage, percussion and vibration should be done. We also need to administer the medicines as ordered, and the effect should be monitored. Now help for the anticipatory grieving. We need to, as I was telling you, that we need to do a lot of counseling of these patients, because this is a lifestyle disease that spends time with client and family. We need to answer the questions, explain them how this disease has occurred, and there is not much cure that can be given, but we need to take care and encourage the family to express their feelings. Then we should understand their feelings and help them to take decision regarding the treatment and take care. We can also discuss the advanced directives like the living will and the power of attorney for the healthcare with the client and family. So, thank you.